So in today's video, I want to talk about decision making in the late game. These are matches that don't come up all the time, mostly down to the way steamrolls happen. I'm sure you've all experienced plenty of those. But the rare games that do come down to the wire, where you're one of the last players remaining, I think that is really where a lot of decision making becomes very difficult, and where maybe you just don't know what to do. So I want to talk about that from a Battleship perspective, I guess, in this one, since we're playing the Colombo. Now you might notice at the bottom of the screen, middle there, that I've got some pretty weird skills activated. I'm messing around with builds in this one, trying to figure out some fun ways to play the Colombo. We can talk about that at the end, but really the decision making is the same relative to a normal standard build or something a little bit weird like this one, where we're trying to focus on reload as much as possible. Of course, starting off the game with a double strike is a very nice way to begin things, especially when you kill a submarine and a destroyer. That really should set your team up really well for success. But you notice our team's lost a couple DDs of our own. We can use the smoke on the Colombo to get away. That is one of the features of this ship. Of course, you have pretty poor range and accuracy as a result of some of these other gimmicks. It's kind of the unfortunate downside of a ship that got tested and developed during the Deadeye era. We kill another destroyer, but again, you can see we're still down on ships. I'm skipping ahead here because the early game really doesn't matter that much. I just want to show you the impact we've been able to have just by playing relatively close to the caps and trying to support our destroyers. That's going to be the best way you can find ways to impact the game as a battleship. If you sit at the back, it is certainly much easier to play, but you're not going to have as much battle impact. Of course, you can't push in every game, though. I'm not saying that. In fact, I find myself a lot of the time forced to the back of the map and not really able to do much. That's just the way battleships go. But Colombo, of course, you want to be swapping between AP and SAP all the time. Get whatever ammo type is correct for the situation. And generally, SAP is correct until you run into Citadel situations on other battleships or cruisers, or you run into a Kurfürst. That kind of thing is a very specific scenario where his upper belt can shatter your SAP. So that's where we want to swap to AP, especially because Kurfürst has such horrible gun angles that if he gets all his guns on, our AP is just going to crush him. But we're up to 131, 137k damage, 4 kills at this point, and we're down on ships. It's a bit of a struggle here at this one. But we have potential to bring it back here. We still have our carrier, which means we still have spotting, and we have a DD kind of wrecking some havoc in the backlines on 2 battleships and, of course, their aircraft carriers. So there is some potential here. We just need to play it smart. We only have 1 heal left, but we do have 2 of our smoke screens, so we do have to keep that in mind, that our smoke screens almost act as a safety zone or a buffer zone. An area where we can just take some time to let our consumables recharge. Much like an island for other battleships and other ships, you can use it as a time to go dark and let your consumables recharge, let other people take the initiative, that kind of thing. It's very handy on this ship given that it's so close quarters centered. Of course, 360 turrets also let us make a lot of good decisions and allow us to move around the map, shifting our rudder, shifting our sides, without really having that nagging thought in the back of our mind that we're losing out on DPM because our turrets have to turn all the way around. 360 turrets are really useful for that. And we're going to be using them here to try and take the best angle on this Kurfürst. Now here's where I'm going to stop cutting forward in the game. We already have an awesome game going, right? 150k, 4 kills, that's a great Colombo game already. But I really want to talk about this late game stuff. What are we doing here? Well, we're trying to kill the Kurfürst before he gets to our carrier, right? We need that spotting for sure. But also, the Kurfürst is distracted by the carrier, which means we're going to get a lot of free damage on him. We also want to take him out before he can get help from the Richelieu or the Fletcher, that kind of thing. We don't want to fight any 2-on-1s. We want to be as uneven or as even a fights as we can take. We don't want to be at a disadvantage as much as possible. So getting rid of this Kurfürst while he's relatively isolated is a very good thing. The other thing to keep in mind is they have a Kaga, which has a ton of planes that are very good at creating these crossfires, right? So especially the torpedo bombers, right? We're going to have to try and stay as safe as we can since the Colombo doesn't have much AA. Now we're using our smoke screen. we're turning out in such a way to not go brawl a half health curve first with only one heal left and relatively low HP. A DD pops up, so it's worth shooting at this. It's worth removing this usefulness of this smoke. But what that does is it kills a destroyer. It also, our smoke screen, gave us the opportunity, the time to turn out away from the curve first without going flat broadside to him, which is very, very good. And it also helped save us from a CV strike, since the CV couldn't see us for the initial preparation of his strike, so he went after the Moskva instead, who has more health and I would guess more ability to heal than us right now. We're using our last heal, and our smoke screen is about to go down. So that's it. We are pretty vulnerable right now. So that's why, again, I'm trying to get away from this curve first, put gaps, put islands between myself and him. I want to wait until at least I have my damage control back, maybe even my smoke screen, although it looks like we're not really going to have time at the end of this game since there's only 3 minutes left on the clock. At this point, we really do need to kill everyone, so it's unlikely we win just because the Kaga will be impossible to kill since he's so far away. But we can at least try and make it close by hopefully killing this curve first and this Richelieu. Which, by the way, the Richelieu is pushing into us, which is both a good and a bad thing. I was intending to round this corner and get into the cap, but since the Richelieu is pushing, well, his best play is to just ram me. As much as I hate it, and I really dislike rams in this game and how it just removes a lot of the fun close quarters engagements, it is the correct play for him, so I'm forced to turn away. I can't push in, because if he gets the ram, he just guarantees wins. Now, again, we're trying to keep the curve first behind islands from us. We don't want to get lit on fire by his secondaries. We don't want to take these uneven fights. So we're trying to do that as much as possible, which is difficult considering we have to angle to this Richelieu at close range. We don't want to take a flat broadside salvo. The other thing you're going to notice me doing is constantly shifting my rudder. I'm never going to let my ship stay in a position where I can get all my guns off. If I'm reloading, why would I open myself up to that type of damage, right? He can potentially get some really nasty full pens into our broadside belt armor, where he still does around 10k damage if we angle a little bit more steeply, but it's not that devastating type of salvo. So you're gonna oftentimes see me do this where I'm playing with my rudder all the time. You should do this in every part of the game. You shouldn't really ever be going in just a straight line. And in a lot of scenarios, I'll even vary up my throttle, right? I'll go at slower speeds, faster speeds, trying to juke and dodge shells. But here, I just need to run away again, trying not to get rammed. Up to 246,000 damage. We finally get our damage control back, but it does seem like it's going to be a bit too late, as the Moskva does eventually go down to the curve first. The curve first on such low HP. If we could just finish off this Richelieu with some overpowered sap, and that's exactly what we do. Maybe we can get the curve first. Although, given the turn I'm making, he's going to go dark. So we pop our plane, but we're not actually going to get any more spotting on him. I will just use my smoke to try and stay alive against the carrier, but that's the game. 272k, 6 kills, double strike Confederate, and high caliber. Pretty insane game, and I think I played it pretty well. Outside of maybe popping out flat broadside to that Richelieu, and maybe earlier on in the game there were some things I could have done where I didn't run away so much, but again, the enemy team had a huge advantage, so they just pushed in, and there wasn't a lot of resistance that I could offer. But the Colombo's a great ship still in close quarters engagements. A lot of the times, though, you're not going to be able to get into those close quarters engagements, but if you can, it's still a great ship to pick up. I just think that the meta is kind of against this thing. But these late game scenarios where it's just you and a couple enemies and there's points and there's caps to think about, these are very interesting late game scenarios to me. And I wish this would happen more often because I find them very fun, trying to figure out the best way to play, trying to figure out the best way to win a game. And unfortunately that didn't happen, but I still had a really good time. And that's the thing, is in these very close matches, they're fun even if you lose. The blowouts, they're not really even all that fun when you win. Especially not very fun when you lose. So I'd love to see if we could figure out a way to make this game a little bit more close and intense in the late game more often. Not sure how they'll do that, but I'd love to see it. As for this goofy build that I'm running, it's pretty bad. In fact, it was so bad that I actually changed it. You can see I'm actually not running Furious anymore. I think that one's just a little bit too greedy for the reload. We got very fast reload, but I think fire prevention concealment is just a little bit better. I am deciding to use this close quarters combat though. It's pretty reliable to activate given your close quarters nature of the Colombo, and of course having those fuel smokes giving you that potential to push in a little bit easier and activate this when you can in the later games. It's not too bad considering you get around a 9.7 kilometer range. So if you're able to push up to an island that is very close to a cap, you're probably going to activate it then. And of course, there's a lot of islands that allow you to push up without really being in that much danger on a lot of these maps and allow you to cross map, which we're lacking range. But if you're going for a just straight best build, the meta build, I think you're probably just going to go Adrenaline Rush, Basic Survivability, and Emergency Repair Expert. I think having these two here instead of these two is just the way to go. I'm taking Grease the Gears. With 360 turrets, you don't have to. But again, it's very, very comfortable to play this ship when you have those very fast turning 360 rear turrets. It's just very nice. Gunfeeder, of course, is required essentially on this ship, given how much you want to switch between AP and HE. Or SAP, sorry, it's SAP. And reload mod and concealment. I mean, this is pretty standard right in here. We're taking the airplane to try and boost our range when we need it, but of course we want the reload because these guns hit pretty hard, but they have a slow reload and their dispersion is poor. So we do want to boost the reload on the ship as much as possible. At least that's how I've enjoyed playing it. So that's the ship, but more importantly, that was a really fun game, and I really hope you enjoyed watching that one. And there's a lot to take from that one. I didn't cover everything and every little decision, but there's a lot of really enjoyable elements to these close late game scenarios, and personally I hope they happen a lot more often. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.